Yeah.
Oh, all right.
That's okay. Oh, there's Aaron. And we're live. Here we go. That was good. Been live for a few seconds. Welcome, everybody. Chuck Cook, Jeff Joseph, Aaron Hall, Greg Biskin. Many of you have listened to the hearing today. I'm going to turn time over to Jeff so he can summarize what happened, where we are, where we're going, and you also should have all checked your emails right now.
Okay, so before the call, we had been communicating with Kurilli about plaintiffs. Yesterday, I sent him, or maybe Monday, I sent him a list of the plaintiffs that I have heard from, and I want to put emphasis on that because I think there's probably some plaintiffs that are just not communicating with us. But in terms of the plaintiffs that are not moving at all, we're down to 6 plaintiffs. And one of those is in administrative processing, and one of them had a positive TB test. So, really the delays on those cases are reasonable, right? So, but the other 4 cases are moving. So that's what happened before. The second thing that we agreed to is to continue the stay of this case until March 4th. Because it is true that the Biden administration is considering lifting the proclamations altogether. And so it's reasonable to agree to the government to delay the case to see what happens with the proclamations. So all of that was sort of agreed to before the call.
That's not delaying, Jeff, just to clarify, that's delaying like the hearing on the merits of the case. That's not about what the government can be doing in the meantime.
No, correct. It's just staying any decision on the case, right? And we think that's actually a good thing because we have movement on the plaintiffs. We've seen so much movement on the plaintiffs. So then the question became, what about the pending motion to add additional plaintiffs? And the judge took the position that, that also should wait until we see what happens with the proclamations. And so, our position was, Judge, the plaintiffs are not going to be happy waiting till March 4th to know whether or not they're going to be named in the lawsuit. And the Department of State is taking the position that they won't process cases unless they're named. And so, it's not okay to have that sort of motion wait until March 4th. And the judge pushed back a little bit and said, yeah, but my order on the injunction really only applies to proclamation plaintiffs. I never issued an order on the mandamus. In fact, I in my order, I determined that those claims are not ripe. So why did we not push on this issue? Because we risked the judge saying, okay, fine, I will apply the named plaintiffs only to proclamation-based plaintiffs and not to the ones that are under mandamus, because those are the only ones that are covered by the proclamation or by the injunction. And I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want the judge to issue an order saying, okay, fine, you can add the proclamation plaintiffs, but the injunction never granted mandamus, and he said that. So rather than push the issue and have him give an order that would only benefit some of you, we think it was better to not push that issue. So where does that leave the plaintiffs now? Well, it is clear that the judge took an aggressive approach to this. He asked at the hearing, what about the new plaintiffs? How are their cases moving? Which is indication to me that he expects the Department of State to be moving on those cases, even if they haven't yet been named. And so then I raised the issue with Joseph Kurilli directly. Given the fact that we're waiting until March 4th, can we start moving on these cases? Can we start asserting to the Department of State that these cases need to move? And his position was, Joseph Kurilli, who is the attorney for the U.S. government, said, I need to check with Department of State about that. So there was no clear answer of whether or not we could do that or what his position would be. Given the judge's stance and given Mr. Kurilli's stance, we are comfortable now with you sending emails to the consulates, telling them the truth, which is that you are in a motion to be a named plaintiff in Milligan v. Pompeo. And we think that it's not okay to wait until March and that we need to move on the cases now. So we are perfectly comfortable, and we are instructing you after this call to use the template that we've sent to you.
You should have it in your email inboxes now.
Yeah, it's in your email inboxes. You can start sending those emails to the consulate. Please copy me, Jeff at immigrationissues.com, or Jeff at Impact Litigation with 2 M's, IMM Pact Litigation. And I don't know, can one of you all put that in the comments section?
Well, it's actually, Jeff, it's in the email itself. Greg's already got a step ahead of you, and all 3 of our emails will be copied.
That's how it's been. And actually, these consulates are probably already familiar with our names because we've been copied on every email so far. So to the extent that they know that we're being copied on it, I think it also lends a little bit more credence.
Right. And so the important email to include in that is assistant@immigrationissues.com, because that's the person that's really kind of keeping the spreadsheet, the tracking sheet that we report back to the U.S. Attorney on a weekly basis. So go ahead and start doing that. So then the question becomes, what if we don't get an order from the judge, or what if the judge rules against us? Well, we have plan B, C, and D. And I don't honestly know which order we would pursue, but I will tell you all of these different scenarios. And then so you know that we've already thought this through. The first is, if he says, no, you can't add additional plaintiffs, we can file another lawsuit. We can file a second lawsuit with all of you in DC or in a different district, and a separate mandamus making the same claims. So that's option 1. Option 2 is, and I like that because you then are still a named plaintiff. You're just a named plaintiff in a different lawsuit. The second option is we file an order, a request for the judge to clarify the order, and that his order on the proclamation applies universally. That if in fact the proclamations are unlawful, it shouldn't matter whether you're a named plaintiff or not. That if proclamation's unlawful, it's unlawful for everyone. And so we would ask the judge to clarify the order.
Right.
The disadvantage of doing that is a universal order is universal, right? So it doesn't necessarily put you at the top of the list. Although, certainly if Carilli knows that we have the potential to file another lawsuit, then he may be willing to work with us on that. And then the third option is we file a motion for class certification, and we ask that the judge certify all of K1s as being subject to the proclamation and make the order universal. In my opinion, that's the least beneficial option, because we will have to litigate class certification. It would delay the case. So all of those issues have been thought through. We're on top of it. We didn't push back on purpose because we don't want an order that only applies to half of you. So that's where we are. And then I'll send it back to you all for any other comments or questions.
One of the other reasons the judge gave for not ruling on the case I found quite interesting is that I've got a lot of stuff to do. I've got all these other cases that I'm working on. And I think he thinks that Biden's going to come in and get rid of the proclamations and everything will be normal again. But we know that will not be the case, because the Department of State is a year behind on virtually everything. I mean, they closed in end of March. They've been closed ever since, essentially. And that's why we filed a mandamus as part of this action, and not just to defeat the proclamation itself. So I think we're on the best possible path we can get here. And I think the judge got a message from us, too, that we really would like the judge. And he said, look, I'll try to get to it before then. I think he thinks it's more complicated than it actually is.
Right.
It's actually very straightforward. And I think he just saw this massive government response when he just reads our reply, which a lot of judges start with. They go, what? Why is all this other extraneous stuff in here? It's pretty straightforward. So,
Somebody had asked about the NVC on there, about the template. Do you guys think I need to send out a second email with the template for the NVC, or is the one that was sent out adaptable enough?
I would send out a separate one.
Let's send a separate one to make it easy for them.
And remember that what we advise you to do is to send, if your case is at the NVC, send an email to both the NVC and the consulate. Send it to both, because they basically point fingers at each other about who's responsible for sending the case. So make sure you send it to both the NVC and the consulate.
Yeah. Right. All right. A couple questions here. Tommy Schober. Try to be pragmatic, not optimistic, but it's difficult what I heard. Many questions. In the beginning of the hearing, what reply was missing? This actually is a really good point, Jeff. Do you want to address that?
There wasn't a reply missing. So After an oral argument, the judge issues what's called a minute order, which is basically, here's what happened at the hearing. Apparently, in that minute order, he ordered us to submit a written status report, a joint written status report prior to the hearing. And both Mr. Carilli and I completely missed it. We didn't see it in the minute order, and neither did any of the other attorneys. So we never submitted a joint status report. It's not a big deal.
No, and the judge was looking for was an apology.
Yeah,
both gave an apology, and he said, "Okay, good, I'm good with that." Tommy asked lots of questions because he's got good questions here. Why are the plaintiffs mixed if we knew from the original opinion that only proclamations were acceptable? What categories are included there, including doubt and further scrutiny?
Right. So it's not that that only proclamations plaintiffs were acceptable. It's just two different claims, right? So one claim is plaintiff subject to proclamation. That proclamation is unlawful. You cannot say that the proclamation applies to visa issuance. And the judge agreed with us across the board. If you're subject to proclamation, that is not a basis to deny visa issuance. But there were also plaintiffs that were from countries not subject to proclamations. And for those, the claim that we're making is a pure unreasonable delay claim, a mandamus claim. In other words, you've paid for an adjudication. You have a right to an adjudication. That adjudication is not discretionary. It's something you're entitled to. And the case is unreasonably delayed. That is a separate legal claim from the proclamation claims. So what the judge said is anyone subject to the proclamation, we win. Like injunction granted, this is unlawful. Department of State is ordered to proceed with visa issuance. On the mandamus claims, the judge said, this may be unlawful, but I can't tell because you have 189 plaintiffs. I can't make a universal claim that this is unreasonable in all circumstances. So he did not grant the injunction with regard to those plaintiffs. It's really irrelevant because the truth is those cases are moving, right? Like aside from 6 cases, our mandamus claims are really moot at this point, to be honest with you. So it doesn't matter whether you're a proclamation plaintiff or not. Either way, you're a subject of the lawsuit and your cases should be moving.
Well, the way I read the initial decision on it was not that he was saying that there was not a claim there. He's just saying he was reserving basically judgment on that and wanted to see what kind of progress was being made. And that's in fact what these status reports are about on there. So, I mean, because there's one thing for the proclamation to be declared illegal, but even if it is, the government can still be delaying those cases.
That's right.
So it's, that's just one barrier out of the way. But as we know from the first 200 cases or whatever that we have on the initial group, the government was treating it as if the judge was going to be issuing an order on that at some point. So they've been working those cases pretty diligently.
Julia asked a really good question. And can we expect the whole K-1 situation to be over once Biden is in office? The new administration and its lawyers shouldn't have reasons to keep fighting against fiancés in court. It's a really good question. And the answer is?
I don't think it will be over. And here's why. I think the proclamations probably will go away, right? I think the proclamations don't make sense. They don't address the problem that they're trying to get at. They're not reasonably tailored to address the COVID or unemployment situation that they're used to justify. I think that there will be something different. It'll be testing, right? You'll have to have 1 or 2 negative COVID tests before you have to come to the country. So it's going to be something different. Here's the other reason why I don't think it's going to change is let's suppose Biden comes in and says, everything's lifted, start processing cases again. There's hundreds of thousands of cases in the backlog, hundreds of thousands. And so just because he lifts it doesn't mean your case is going to move quickly. In fact, it could be the opposite. It could be you're in a very long wait. And so the fact that we have this mandamus claim alive for you is good because you're already on the radar screen that this is already delayed. If it gets delayed further, then the mandamus claim becomes very ripe. So
especially now that you'll be contacting the consulates and the NVC.
Right.
So that'll be important to move forward for at this point.
Yeah.
Next question from Allison. If an appeal is filed, would the previous plaintiffs be harmed, or is the appeal going to be filed and we would be out of luck?
Great question. So he did indicate today that he's going to file what's called a protective order, which basically, since his appeal rights from the injunction have already passed, right? Because it's 30 days from the injunction. But because we've stayed the case, he is filing a protective order asking the judge to preserve his right to file an appeal of the injunction because we're staying the case. And I don't think they're going to appeal the injunction. I'll be honest. I don't. I think, especially because they don't know what's going to happen with Biden. That's a lot of legal work to undergo just to have a proclamation lifted. So I don't think they'll file an appeal, but I think they're going to file a protective order preserving their right to do it.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that stays the court's order.
It doesn't.
It just means, look, we might want to challenge the issue of the reach of 212F in the future. The reality is that issue is already on appeal. In fact, this morning it was in appeal at this circuit court building.
Right.
So that's something not to be worried about. All right, now here's Gus Stamets. My sister is stuck in Montreal, a plaintiff.
Yes, Gus. Mary's case was reported as one of the 6 plaintiffs yesterday, as well as 3 other people from Montreal. Montreal is one consulate that's stubborn for some reason.
I think stubborn is the kind word if they're listening today. Let's see. Currently waiting in Mexico. Yes, it seems strange we agreed far too quickly. A field representative getting added as a new plaintiff. Well, Sydney, you want to address that? That was Sydney Moog.
Seemed like the stay was agreed to far too quickly. Well, I mean, the absence of the stay is litigating this case to summary judgment. I mean, moving forward on the merits of the case, and we would lose, to be honest with you, on a lot of your cases. If we push this to summary judgment, in your case is not unreasonably delayed, we would lose, right? So as long as we're getting what we want, which is your cases are moving, there's no point in litigating this through to fight. I mean, a stay works to all of our advantage strategically, because as long as the government's working with us and moving on your cases, that's what we want.
Keep in mind, that's what, this is a stay from the original case. We already have the entire first group, that has, well, not the entire group, but a very large portion of the first group has already been, interviewed on there. So that, this is the strategy we've been using, which is the government has been, is under the pressure to do something on there, and they've been acting. So there's no point in trying to get to that final place and potentially lose.
Yeah, I mean, we may ultimately dismiss this lawsuit voluntarily, right? We're not looking for a win here. We're not looking to win a case. We're looking to get you all relief. And so our concern is not moving this through to final litigation. It's to really get your cases approved.
Ayla makes a good point. Frankfurt's only processing plaintiffs. I mean, that's happening in a number of countries. That's why it's important to be the plaintiff or to send our email out showing that you are going to be a named plaintiff here. Catriona had said this. I don't know if she's a lawyer or not, but I think she makes a good point. The administration's ability to lift the proclamations is not as easy as writing a new executive order, correct? They have to address the issues first. Therefore, it's not a priority to the administration. We could be in a longer holding pattern. That's why it's important to keep this litigation going in the way we're doing it, because we're working with the department because, again, they don't want to have to litigate 250 individual mandamus actions. It's easy for them, again, to begin to process these cases. So, Tommy Schober, immigration visa rep to us. At this time, the class only process K1 applicants that are plaintiffs to qualify for a national exemption. I don't know what that's in response to, but you should begin sending out these emails on this and copying us on it.
I think that's correct about Frankfurt. I think he's referring to the text up above about Frankfurt.
Right.
Now, and that is true. I mean, Frankfurt, I don't think we have any plaintiffs left at Frankfurt. They've all been approved.
Cindy wants to know why we're doing a Facebook instead of a Zoom. It's really quite easy because it's easier for us to do the Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impossible with this many people to do.
350 people on a Zoom call. It's just way too difficult.
We also, the point may be as well that potentially the government could hear like what we're talking about on here. But when you have 1,000 people in this suit, there's no way that we're going to be able to keep secrets on when we have these mass discussions. So it's just kind of pointless to worry about that.
And there's nothing secret here. The government knows exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. Let's see. Problem is that once the ban is lifted, plaintiffs are not going to get extra treatment. They'll be stuck and lost in the insane backlog at each end. We paid money, only be left on the waiting line again. We've been months from now. This is insane. Actually, I would disagree with that. Because this lawsuit is not going away. You will remain a plaintiff in this lawsuit. I'm full confidence everybody will be added as plaintiffs going eventually by this judge, hopefully sooner rather than later. But it also gets you now to keep telling them, look, I'm in the motion to be named a plaintiff in this case. Look at my case. And as we work with the government lawyers, now keep in mind, most of the movement at the consulate didn't come because the consulate heard about the case. It came because of the communications that we have with the government lawyer working with his client in the United States to send that communication out to the consulates. So it's not that they're going to say, oh, you send us email, we're going to work on your case. They're going to see that. They're going to ask state what to do, and they're going to wait for Carilli and Counselor to reach out to them. So that's why it's important for you to keep us copied on everything and updated on your status as you begin to get interviews.
If we start getting responses from the consulates that say you're not a named plaintiff, then we will take those back to the judge.
Okay.
Right. You might remember at the beginning of the hearing, the judge actually was assuming that the government was already working on you guys. So this is, I think that was actually probably helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Christy, do we send it to the embassy or the embassy directly? If you are at the embassy, you send it to both the embassy and the NBC. If you're already at the embassy, you only send it to the embassy. Jess Wright, these are early on questions, but the judge seemed like K1 was not a priority. I don't think that was the case. I think that this is just the judge. This is how, unfortunately, if you're not involved with these cases all the time, that's just how judges are.
Well, and also to be fair to the judge, the cases are moving.
Yeah.
Like the cases that are actually the named plaintiffs, they're almost done. So from his perspective, the case, he sees progress. So there's not a lot of reason to fight whether or not K1s are priority. That's not an issue. He's already indicated in his injunctive order that they are priority and that they should be processed, and they are being processed.
Adela asked what the subject should be. I assume it should be the subject line of the email. I would simply put, Milligan,
Mm-hmm.
request Milligan - request for appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey Chuck, I just sent. I don't know how to add the address. I just sent it privately to you for the NBC.
Did you email it to me? Oh, there it is.
I sent it in the private chat.
All right.
Can you also put in up the assistant at immigration issues?
I will do that right now. Let me put that. Here is the email for the NBC, if you don't already have that. Okay.
This question is the second lawsuit going to cost us more money? No. I mean, you've already paid to be a part of the lawsuit. So if we are not successful getting you added to this claim and we decide that a second lawsuit is the way to go, then you've already paid for it.
Right. We're not making different arguments.
No.
And the email to copy everybody on is assistant@immigrationissues.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Good. I even spelled it correctly. Awesome.
Can I say something about the form that's going to be that we're going to be collecting information from people?
Oh, yes. We're going to need the simplest way for you to tell us what's going on. Greg's going to create a Google Doc, which will email out to all the plaintiffs, that you'll just fill in with the basic information that we'll need about your case, including your case number, so we can convert that into a very quick response over to the government counsel on the status of your case.
Right. I'm not going to use Google form. I'm going to use a community lawyer form. And so it's not the same one as the first group. But basically, what we want you to do is to fill out this little form to either tell us what your current status is on your case, which is something that you all can do initially, and then use that same form to tell us when there has been a change in the status. So maybe the NBC has forwarded your case to the consulate. You would tell us that. And then there's a box at the end to let us know any questions or anything that you want us to know. It's way easier to not send, for example, your questions to multiple lawyers in the firm. We don't know if somebody else has already answered your question. It's not necessarily the right person. We have to forward it around. It's just so much easier and more efficient. And you want us working on your cases as opposed to being disrupted with inefficient emails where multiple people are answering. So please use this form. I am working on this this afternoon, so you should have it by the end of the afternoon, early evening, our time. on there. And I will also send you an NVC template as well that we just talked about. Those two things will be coming this afternoon.
All right. Good question from Catherine. What if the consulate says, heck with you, you're not a plaintiff. Have a nice day. We need to collect that information so that then we can go back to the judge, say, Judge, we need to issue a decision. So this is an important part if the judge delays and not able to get to the case, for us to go back and say, Judge, we've done all these efforts and part of the case without the actual order. And he even acknowledged, okay, well, I'll, at the end of the discussion about the importance of issuing an order, says, okay, I'm gonna get to it.
Right.
So this is important for us to know.
We expect actually some of the consulates are probably going to say we're going to wait and see to get direction from Washington on that, and that's going to get back to Mr. Carilli, and it's going to put some pressure on him to basically hopefully cooperate here, and he's been pretty good so far. So it's not something to freak out about if you get that kind of pushback from the consulates. I would expect some of that.
Okay, I lost in my feed here. I lost some questions, but we'll hit this. What about stubborn consulates like Rio? Our Rio folks have been able to process, haven't they, Jeff? As far as we know.
Yes, although I want to say that one of them transferred to
Guayaquil, right?
Yeah.
Now, some of you have very old cases. These are the mandamuses that the judge will grant. Nobody should wait 2 years to be with their spouse, with their fiance or spouse.
Yeah, and we should probably talk about that in more specific. Yeah. So, when does a case become unreasonably delayed, right? So if you think about the Department of State process as a timeline, it starts with the National Visa Center and the notice of action, and it ends with you being issued a visa in your passport. The cases that are at the National Visa Center are, at this point, the least delayed, right? Because they're just starting the Department of State process. If your case has been pending there for a long time, then it's unreasonably delayed. But the further you get in the process and how long it's been, the more likely the judge is to find that your case has been unreasonably delayed. So cases from 2019 are a problem, obviously. Cases that have been pending for 2 or 3 months, not so much.
Does the template work for people who just need a visa reissuance?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. Okay. Catherine, if mandamus wasn't given attention to the last order, why didn't we move ahead with those affected by proclamation countries?
We did.
We did. So we did.
We did both.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to skip a couple non-Milligan cases here. I got my interview on January 7th. The embassy advised they will stick to appointment made for first round players. I had my interview given before the lockdown happened. Well, great. Well, let's get that email out, and let's get that email to us, that email response, so we can get to the judge. Okay. Let's see. What documents will show the new plaintiffs when allowed to join the lawsuit? I actually don't think you need to attach any documents to this email, because you're the only ones who know about the email. So they'll be able to, the state already has the list because they got sued, and we gave Carilli the list of all the plaintiffs. And so I don't think you need to attach the lawsuit as we did in prior filings. You guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
By the way, the NVC address is one address for everybody for NVC. For each consulate, you're going to be sending to the IV section of the consulate, and those addresses are all on the websites, aren't they?
Yes, they are. You have to dig to find the addresses, but they're there. So if there's an issue, I was going to say, it shouldn't be any problem finding them.
They almost always have the word IV in the address, so that's how you know it's the right one. If they
IV Kabul or IV Morocco, or that'll be right there. Serena asked a good question. What does he say about these 6 cases? Well, the answer is always the same. I'll get with my client. Remember, Carilli is the lawyer, not the guy. And of these 6 cases, we're going to take 2 of them out because they're separate. So really only 2. And 3 of them are in Montreal. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, one of the cases, the fellow just said he was stuck in Mexico. Is that one of the 6 that you're reporting? Because
I don't think so.
It kind of raises a different issue, which is that we have some clients, some plaintiffs who have not been communicating with us about delays, and we're not reporting. If we're not hearing from you, we're not reporting that there's a problem. So please just make sure that you're checking in with us to tell us if you're still stuck, if you're one of the original group.
Please do that. But I will tell you this too. The consulates around the world are independent. They're independent, right? So yes, everybody at the consulate works for the Department of State, but they are independent entities from what we call state back in Washington, D.C. So yes, they generally should do what state tells them to do, but they have authority on the ground because it is a consular outpost to override those decisions or ignore those decisions, as long as it's not illegal to do so. So I mean, I can't explain to you why Montreal's doing this, other than 30 years of experience. I mean, Montreal's always been a problem.
Yeah, Serena is actually from a different consulate. And Serena, your case was one of the ones that was reported of the 6. I think she's in Kabul, I want to say. It was reported. I have not actually communicated with the government about your case in particular. The ones that he got back to me were a case where a person tested positive for TB and has to wait for a second test, and another case where it's an administrative processing. I did email him about the Montreal cases because there's 3 of them, and he said he would check with the Montreal consulate. That was today. So I will reach out to him about your case in Kabul too, because I did not talk to him directly about your case.
I have an issue to raise with you guys on there. So we did hear from somebody who had their interview and got a 221G denial. And in separate emails, I don't think you guys were on that, they mentioned that there were questions about the bona fides of their relationship and WhatsApp chat stuff and all that. And I think it's important to remind people that we're not able to, all we're doing in this case is getting the government to move on to taking your case to a decision. We can't actually get them to approve you if there's problems with the case on there. That's something that you need to talk to a lawyer individually about your case about. In this case, this person actually has a lawyer working on it, but that's something that we're not going to be able to solve that problem if you have that kind of problem. And I just want to remind people of that.
Right. And same thing with like TB, right? I mean, if you have a positive TB test, you're inadmissible to the country until you test negative. So that's not, we can't do anything about that.
Right.
Okay. I do want to thank Shaylin. You're welcome. Appreciate that. Carlos, not a named plaintiff. Why will counsel about pushing your case? If you are in the group seeking to be named plaintiffs, again, they have that list. You're going to tell us that they said, screw you, so we can go back to the judge and say, Judge, we really need a decision. So that's why that's important.
Yeah, we need the ammunition to go back to the judge and say, Judge, without an order, the Department of State is not going to do anything.
So different consulates are coming up. We have Nigeria. We've got Manila. Yeah, I mean, they in some of these countries, they're just doing expedited plaintiff cases. They're not doing anybody else. Although, and hopefully folks know about the statistical page at Department of State. You can go there and see how many visas each consulate issues each month. And so even if they tell you we're not doing something, you go there and you say they really are doing it. And then they can't explain why they're there. Let's see. The London issue. Do we have London plaintiffs left that aren't already interviewed? Everybody's been interviewed.
I don't think so. I think all of as far as the ones that are reporting, I think all of London has been adjudicated. Yeah. If that's not the case, please let us know.
Around the beginning of the year, London actually reached out to a lot of people directly and tried to clear this out of their backlog.
They were really obstinate at the very beginning, and then all of a sudden they let loose.
Embassy. Yeah, Levi, this is actually what we talked about early in the broadcast, which is why you're sending an email to the embassy and the NBC, so we can again show the judge that they're pointing at each other. We've seen this for years, very, very typical. Generally, the consulates think that the NBC randomly sends them cases. They might not be aware that the consulate will say, hey, we got room for 50 people next month, send us visas. Right. So it is something we need your responses from those emails so we can see that.
Well, and by putting both of them on there, they're going to be better behaved about passing it off on to the other.
Yeah, so you put them both on the same email. All right, that would be very, very helpful. That'll be and they have a, and I think you guys can agree with this. The consulates always hit reply to all. I haven't seen one yet where they just hit reply. So we're copied on all, hundreds of emails, and that's fine because again, it gives us the picture that we can use to get back with the government lawyer on this. Okay, there you go, Hannah. Congratulations. There you go. It's like a cute little baby there as well. Awesome news. Rama, if you go to the beginning part of this video, Greg did a really good discussion about this. What is the quantitative measure that constitutes the delay in measuring K-1 visas? Is it every K-1 that isn't moved for 3 months? That's a really good question. Is there a quantitative measure, Jeff, that makes something unlawfully delayed?
Not really. What the government is going to do is they're going to say, well, this is what I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to go back and say, this is the processing times for K-1s prior to COVID last year. This is the processing time for K-1s under COVID this year, and tried to show that the judge that things are just not moving.
Guangzhou has an email address. I'm looking for it now.
Yeah, so 3 months, if your case has only been delayed 3 months, yeah, probably not unreasonable at that point. But the longer this lawsuit goes on without movement, the more that 3 months turns into 6 months and 9 months. And then, yes, it does become unreasonable at that point.
Mela asked about individual mandamus cases. Again, this is where you'd contact one of us offline to talk about that. And this really goes when you're individually, you're really looking at substantially delayed cases. Like NBC finished processing my case in December 2019. That's unreasonable. A year apart is obviously an unreasonable delay, even during the COVID period, because we can point, depending on which consulate you're in, to the consulate issuing many K-1s during that period. Even when they were supposedly not issuing them. So
if you're concerned about what's going to happen with this motion for adding plaintiffs, that is an option. You can withdraw from this lawsuit and file an individual mandamus.
Every plaintiff should send emails to every consulate you're at. You don't need to distinguish between proclamation and non-proclamation countries. That's not a worry you need to have about this. Okay.
Chuck, I just put in the chat the Guangzhou address.
Okay. Somebody needed this? All right.
Yeah, somebody's saying that they only have a form.
Okay, I'm going to put that here and add a banner, and it's easier to put up here. Here we go. This is actually a pretty common format for consulates. It's not always correct, but it's the general common format. For consular addresses. Okay. Let's see. Go through here. If you guys see any others here, Shaylin asked for a good email address for London. Hopefully, somebody else can respond that's been dealing with London. I just don't have it off the top of my head. Let's see.
Oh, look.
Okay, NBC email address, Gregory would put that up. Let's see. A lot of the same questions over and over again. And when they read the email, by magic, they will give us an interview. I don't think so if we're not recognized as plaintiffs. Again, Alberto, this is why you have to send it so we can get that response. Okay, it's important for you to do that so now we can show the judge that he has to rule on this motion. Okay. Yes, copy us on those emails. You copy them in the CC, not the BCC. Don't blind copy us. Copy us so the consulate sees that we're on there. Okay. Okay.
Chuck, I just sent in the chat what I think is the London address that I found in my emails, but I'm not positive.
Okay. This may be the London address. Some of our other London people probably have it and can tell us. This may be it. Again, They're all different. They're different. They generally follow the first format, but they could be this.
Somebody is reporting that it's London info unit at state.gov.
Yeah, this is when you are submitting documents to the consulate. So don't use this one. I'm going to take that off. Don't use that one. That's for submitting consulate stuff. Let's see.
I'm not going to look up everybody's email addresses for everybody right now. So.
This is good. The email is not cleverly worded, so they won't realize you're not a plaintiff. We're very plain about the fact that you're not a plaintiff. So they'll go. They may have a list. They're going to check. So again, this is to get the reports back if they're not going to do it. All right.
Now we were actually pretty specific as far as what we put in the template about what your status is. So.
Is anyone on the call? I assume a lot of you are members of the Facebook group, the fiance Facebook group. If not, if somebody could post the name of the Facebook group, because a lot of the emails and sharing of like consulate emails you can do in that Facebook group.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good source.
Because I will tell you, the websites are very difficult to navigate, but these email addresses are out there. All right. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate that. All right, this is actually good. Had the interview never came to passport backs. You can modify the template. This is a template, so you can say, "Hey, dude, you interviewed me on X date. Just give me my visa."
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm going to be a named plaintiff. So again, a template for you to use. Some people are more comfortable with templates than then writing their own email. So that's why we give you the template on this. Okay. That gets me to the end here. Okay. I want to answer this one more time because Ross may have done a little bit. What happens if the travel bans are lifted but the judge makes a ruling? Is the lawsuit null and void? We've talked about that, but Greg, you want to just that one more time, Jeff? That would be great. Yeah, no, I mean, so there's two parts to the lawsuit. There's the proclamation and then there's mandamus. And the judge has already ruled that the proclamation related ban is unlawful as it applies to issuance of K-1 visas. The judge has not ruled yet on our mandamus claim. It's still ripe. And so if the proclamation is lifted, that part of the lawsuit still lives on. The lawsuit lives on. This, by the way, is the Facebook group, K1 Lawsuit Group. So you can go there on Facebook. How long to wait for the embassy to reply before contacting you? Keeping in mind, you've copied us on it. So you've already contacted us. Some embassies are very quick. They'll come back to you within a day. Others will take a week. But I've never seen them not respond. And
if they don't respond, let us know that too. We can report that.
If they don't come back for a week, email us offline and say, "Hey, I never got a response to this." Because again, we are in constant contact with Mr. Kirill.
And he's been good. He's been really good.
Honestly, the best government lawyer I've worked with on a lawsuit. Been terrific, especially if he's listening. In regards to the lawsuit, they've kicked many of us out. I don't know what that means. They kicked many of you out. Hopefully they don't at this point. All right.
Lawsuit group, they kicked you out of Facebook or?
K1 group visa journey. Try that one.
Hold on. Ann Fall is asking it said, Greg, clarify what folks at NVC should do with regards to which template, please. So I'm going to send a separate template. If you're at the NVC and not at the consulate, you're going to I'm going to send you a separate template if you're at that stage, and you're going to send it to both the NVC address and the embassy. But that's going to look a little bit different, that template, than if you are already at the embassy.
Okay. And I want to end on this one here, because there's others I've seen here are just kind of the same thing. Jeff, just to go over again the steps, because again, this is complicated stuff. This legal stuff people normally don't handle unless they're involved in the profession. So kind of go through this one more time, Jeff, and then we'll get everybody on their way.
Yeah. So let's assume that all these emails that we're already getting, I already have hundreds of them in my inbox. Let's assume they go nowhere. The consulate are like, sorry, you're not a named plaintiff. Step one is we go back to the judge and we say, Judge, the consulates are responding and they will not adjudicate these cases absent an order. Will you please issue the order? That's step one. If that doesn't work and the judge says, no, I'm going to keep it till March 4th, then we can, you have a couple of options. You can drop out of this lawsuit and file an individual mandamus, or number two, we can file a separate new lawsuit for all of the Group 2 plaintiffs, and we can file that in DC. We can file it in a different district. So we have that as an option. Option three is we can file a motion with the judge for him to clarify his order as it applies to the proclamation and clarify that it, having found the proclamation unlawful, that's a universal order. It doesn't mean that it's unlawful only to Milligan plaintiffs. So that's option three. Option four, and the least favorable option, is we file a motion for class cert. And we ask that the judge make a ruling that this is a class and that it applies to all class members. So we have B, C, D backup plans.
Right. And you're all in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
So, and I have gotten 130 emails so far, I believe, Jeff. Thank you, everybody, for being so diligent on this. All right. The last request here is, can we share updates by email? Yes, we generally have been doing that. Either on Facebook or Twitter, and on email. But we will also, as we get new information, we will send an email blast out to everybody as well, because we know that's convenient for most folks.
And if we don't send anything out, that's just because there's nothing new, right? What will cause problems is if you email us about, how do I get my medical exam taken, or you're asking us individual questions about how to do things at the consulates, those we will not respond to. We just simply don't. I mean, like we said, in this call, we've already received 130 emails. If you add in individual case questions to that, we're talking thousands and thousands of emails. So don't be offended if we send you a little snippy response saying contact your lawyer. That's beyond the scope of what we've asked what we can do, because we really don't have the time. We need to work on your lawsuit, not your individual cases. Yeah,
nobody's going to be blacklisted by a consulate. That doesn't happen. I understand the fear in the current political environment, but no, it's there's no blacklisting going on.
Hopefully their attitude is going to start getting better in the next.
Many consulates are going to be much happier. And again, there's no additional charges. You guys have paid us. We're moving forward on this, and we're going to do everything possible to get that visa issued and into your hands. There you go, Tiger. What a good way to end it. I do love, he called himself Tiger is best ever. I mean, if I'm going to name myself, that's what I'm going to name myself.
His middle name is not is best.
The last questions were about when will we get the template for NVC. Greg will send that out right after the call.
Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen shortly. Give Greg a little time. He's probably, I don't want him to be hangry. He probably needs to eat a little lunch or something. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have an excellent day. We'll be back in touch shortly with more information.
All right, bye-bye, guys.